Hi everyone, it's Snapper again, and today we're doing a little tutorial about painting with light. And I wanna start with just talking about different cameras for that type of photography. So I do have this Fuji camera here, which is like view rangefinder camera. So what it means is when you look through the viewfinder here, you'll see a slightly different view rather than what is the lens seeing. So it's a bit different. It's two separate systems basically to show the image. And there are other cameras which are, for example, mirrorless or DSLR cameras, which shows through the viewfinder exactly what you see through the lens. So the very interesting thing about the painting with light technique is that during the exposure, it's very hard to judge what is your composition going to look like. So, for example, if you use mirrorless camera or DSLR camera, during the exposure, viewfinder is completely blacked out, so you can't see anything through it. So basically, it's a lot of guess what results you're gonna get. Whereas with this one, if I close the lens, for example, or I start exposure, I still can see the view through the viewfinder. It's never blacked out. So what it means is if I do any camera movements, I always see roughly what sort of composition I have, what frame I have, and that's excellent for this technique, painting with light. Now, when it comes to settings, obviously there can be different techniques and not necessarily what I'm doing here, but for my examples, whatever I was doing, I was mainly using 1 second length shutter speed or duration. And then I was using the maximum aperture possible, which is f11 on this camera, and also ISO as low as possible. So on this camera it's ISO 100, and that is because once you do these longer exposures, you let lots of light into the camera, so the sensor is being exposed. And because it's very important not to burn the highlights. Therefore, you have to be really careful with how much of light you're actually letting in. So most of times you will have to use like maximum apertures or like high f number apertures, just to close down that light coming into the camera. So lots of times you could be using ND filters, because that's like putting sunshades on your eyes, and like this is how you limit sunshine coming into your face. So painting with light, basically it's all about highlights. So you always want to keep the detail and the color in these highlights. That's why, as I said, it's very important to have closed apertures and even using ND filters. But obviously on this camera I don't have ND filters, so I just used like maximum aperture f11, and then I was using 1 second duration shutter speed, which was just about right in that sort of evening environment. And when you're just taking shots of city lights or shop logos or whatever lights you see around the city. What I'll show you now is some different basic techniques. So this is not something like too complicated, and I'm pretty sure that you can come up even with some more creative ideas and use it in a very different way. But this is just to start with, and just to have a little go and practice, and then later on you can add up more things. So first technique will be basically using, as I said, 1 second exposure, f11, ISO 100, and I'm just doing slow panning. So basically I keep the camera like this, and then I see in the frame like where what composition I want to have, and I'll be pressing the shutter, and then once I press the shutter, I'll be moving camera sideways, so I'll be doing a bit of panning movement, either left or the right, doesn't matter, depends what you want to get, as you see in this video clip. And then this is the result. Now next one would be tilting. So I do a similar thing, I just keep the camera like this, I start the exposure pressing the shutter button, and then I either go up or I go down, and again this way you create that light movement, like up or down. The next one will be the camera rotation. So what I do is I start the exposure pressing the shutter, and then I rotate the camera whichever way I want, and whatever degree I want. It doesn't have to be full rotation, doesn't have to be 90 degrees, it can be just 45 or 15 degrees, up to you. Next would be zooming. So luckily this camera has a zoom lens, which is really good advantage and gives you extra creative opportunities. So what I do, again, I want to just keep it really steady. So very important, the camera must be really steady, and I just start the exposure, and then whilst exposure is still going, I can zoom out or zoom in. Just make sure when you're doing that, the camera is not moving, so you're only using the lens barrel, and you turn the focusing ring, or like zooming ring, sorry, not focusing, zooming ring. The last one would be long exposure. So this time you're gonna choose even longer shutter duration. So it can be, I don't know, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 8. Up to you, as long as you can control the highlights, because it's very easy to blow the highlights out with that super long exposure. So it's not going to be very easy to find situations when you can use it, because the highlights will be just blowing out. So what you need to do for that one, preferably you need to either shoot subjects which are like not very bright, so lights which are not very bright, or you're gonna have to use ND filters. So screw a filter on the front of the lens, and this is how you block the light, and therefore you can do long exposures. And then once you have that setting, you can just basically start the exposure, press the shutter, and then you can do any camera movements, whatever comes up to your head. You can do lots of different creative things, you know, so it can be circles, can be squares, can be crosses, can be stars, anything you want. And again, just basically the camera will finish the exposure, and you're gonna see all the movements as in these examples. A few important things to consider when you're doing that would be really pay attention to highlights, and if you're not overexposing, because if the highlights will be blown out, you're not going to see the color in these pictures, you're not going to see much, it will be just white blobs. Yeah, so you have to be really careful. And then next one would be super steady hands and balanced stance, because unless it's your choice and you want to have a bit of jittery patterns, you can do like less steady hands and stuff like that. But if you want to have like really nice lines and looking super like crisp and smooth, then you must have steady hands, and you must have like really balanced stance. And obviously with this type of photography, you know, you have to do lots of trial, and then you're gonna have lots of errors, and this you're gonna improve and adjust and then over time you can start to predict the results a bit better, you know. But as I said, for this thing, the really useful is rangefinder cameras, as I said, as for example this one, because you can actually see what you are doing through the viewfinder rather than just having a black screen and just trying to guess what sort of composition you're getting, what is in the frame, what is out of the frame, is the light source still in the frame or is it out already, you know. It becomes super difficult, you know. And also you can try to shoot with a wider focal length lenses, you know, because once you have a bigger frame, bigger scene, it's a bit easier to keep that light source inside the frame, not to lose it, you know. So that's a good thing. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this one, and give it a go, give it a try. I'm sure you can come up with some creative ideas and good use for you know, for your own creative process. And I will add some sample photos now, and you can just have a look. So this will be like a mix of techniques that I use. So in one shot it can be multiple techniques involved, not only one or the other. Yeah, so I hope you'll enjoy that, and thanks for watching.